The federal government is holding a news conference right now on affordability. Let's listen in live.
Was put in place during the pandemic and helped nearly 900,000 small businesses keep their doors open. But we know that small businesses, especially in the hospitality and tourism industry, are still struggling. That's why last year we extended the forgiveness deadline for CEBA loans by an entire year. But we know more help is needed. So let me shed some light on what this announcement means for small businesses across the country. First, it provides options. If you can repay your loan, you have until January 18, 2024 to do so, to still get the $20,000 of your loan forgiven. If you are a small business who still needs more time to repay, but still want to qualify for that partial loan forgiveness, you can apply for refinancing by January 18th, 2024, and still get that forgiveness as long as your financial institution approves the refinancing by March 28th, 2024. This means that you have more time and flexibility to work with your bank and have your loan partially forgiven. Lastly, if you cannot refinance your loan or repay by January 18, 2024, you now have one more year to repay your loan in full until December 31st, 2026. Businesses will have more than 3 years to repay their loan at a lower than market interest rate of 5%. And over the past little while, I've been traveling across Canada and speaking with small businesses from PEI to BC and to the Yukon. They have told me repeatedly that they need more flexible options and more time. The changes we have made to CEBA do just that. And I want to take a moment to thank small business owners across Canada for the hard work they do and that they have been doing throughout the pandemic. And as an entrepreneur during the pandemic, I understand the challenges that they continue to face, and I want you to know that we have your backs and we will continue to be there for you. Thank you and merci, and I'll now pass it over to Anita.
Thank you so much, Richie, and bonjour tout le monde. C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici
It's a
avec
great
vous
pleasure
cet
to be here
après-midi.
with you this afternoon.
While the Conservatives have consistently voted against our measures that support millions of Canadians, from the grocery rebate to early learning and child care to indexing old age security, we are going to continue to do the work that is necessary to support Canadians during this economic time. We're working across government to refocus our spending on priorities that matter to Canadians most. And this include measures to increase more housing, to stabilize grocery prices, and to support small businesses, as you have heard today. As President of the Treasury Board, I am committed to ensuring that we are prioritizing smart governance and prudent fiscal management so that our public resources benefit Canadians, because you are counting on us to deliver for you. I will oversee the implementation plans for Bill C-56, the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, to make sure that they are solid and effective in addressing the housing crisis and the rising cost of living. The analysis that I will lead as Treasury Board President will ensure value for taxpayer dollars. Je superviserai les plans de mise en œuvre du.
I will oversee the implementation plans for Bill C-56 to make sure that these are robust and efficient to face the housing crisis and the increase in cost of living. The analysis that I will carry out as the President of the Treasury Board will allow the optimization of the use of the taxpayers' money.
Deliver for you on the economy, on the affordability issues that you are facing, and that is exactly what we will continue to do. Merci beaucoup.
That was very disciplined. Thank you very much. We're going to questions now.
On espère que les journalistes seront.
Well, we hope that the journalists will be equally disciplined. Well, short questions and answers, please. Yes, let's go to the room. Let's start with Najud.
Hi. I want to start off by asking about the GST rebate. It's for projects that are constructed from now until the end of 2030, or at least start construction. I'm wondering why 7 years only.
One of the things that we heard when we were, and apologies, I assume this one was directed at me. One of the things we heard when we consulted with industry players and folks who know the space in the housing sector was that we needed to give enough time for people to plan ahead what their next cycle of construction projects are going to look like. We didn't want to put, for example, a measure on the table that was only going to apply for a year or two that wouldn't allow people to meaningfully plan ahead. The next 7 years, or 6.5 years, I suppose, is key because it aligns with the supply gap report that CMHC recently produced. To the extent that we continue to need to put forward measures that will continue to keep Canada building apartment construction over the course of the years that follow the 2030 deadline, that's a decision that I think would be appropriately taken when we're able to make an assessment of the housing supply gap that may exist or not exist at that time. So I think it's a prudent measure that will allow us to ring-fence anticipated costs of the program, but give enough time for builders to have the certainty they need to plan their next generation of apartment buildings in Canada.
Thank you. And my second question is for Mr. Champagne. Your government promised to review the Competition Act. You published a report a couple of days ago on the public consultations. Can you talk a little bit about what else is to come? Because we know something's coming, but can you give an outline of what else you're hoping to do?
Well, thank you for the question. I'd say what we're doing is kind of landmark changes to the Competition Act. I mean, I can only think of people who have seen, for example, when we did the market study on groceries and the fact that the commissioner would not have the subpoena power and not getting the full information. I think it was kind of shocking for Canadians. And we said we need to address that. That is big. And I can tell you in the report and what we heard, and yesterday I was with the Independent Grocers of Canada, this has been one of the things to say we need more information. The second one, which I would say, which is big, is the famous so-called efficiencies defend. I'm not sure I would have called it this way, by the way, at the time. This go back to almost 1968. And basically, it's been used time and time again to have consolidation at the time where we want to have more competition. And I would say, if you ask me what's the big thing, this is a real big thing in Canada's history, because we were one of the few countries that I can imagine to have such a provision that would allow mergers to go forward on the basis of synergy, despite the fact that they're not in line with competition. The third thing we did, and the Deputy Prime Minister was saying that, is that we also heard people with respect to grocery. And one of the landmark thing you see is these kind of collaboration you've seen that when, for example, a banner would go in a shopping center, you'd have restrictive covenants that others cannot come in the same area within a radius. So if you ask me, this is the big things we're doing. Will there be more? Definitely. We're going to continue the work. But I would say at a time where Canadians are saying, the price of food is of concern, cost of living is concerning, the best way we can do, apart from the work that we've been doing with groceries and collectively, I think, taking these big chunk in terms of reforming competition in the country will lead to lower prices.
Émilie Bergeron.
Oui, bonjour, Madame Filet.
Hello, Madam Freeland. So your measure will not just apply to affordable housing. You decided to not determine thresholds on the market value. NDP, your partners, let's call them.
À mettre en place des systèmes d'alerte précoces pour les pays et petits États insulaires en développement. At COP26 in Glasgow, Canada launched a global carbon pricing challenge, inviting other countries to put in place a carbon pricing system. When we did that, only 20% of the world was covered by a form or another of carbon pricing. We're now 25% of emissions covered. And this week, we welcome new members to the challenge: Côte d'Ivoire, Denmark, Norway, and Vietnam. Canada co-founded the Powering Past Coal Alliance, and this week we welcome 2 new members, Panama and Colombia, who are committed to move away from coal, one of the most important actions we can take to fight climate change. Canada is also hosting the next negotiating session on the legally binding International Treaty on Plastic Waste. At a ministerial meeting of the High Ambition Coalition to End Plastic Pollution we held yesterday, I reiterated Canada's unwavering support for such an outcome. Lastly, Canada was recognized as a global methane champion for the work we are doing to cut methane emissions. As part of that global methane event, we announced that we will soon release draft regulations for methane emissions in the oil and gas sector. This will put Canada on a path to tackle the next great challenge of going beyond our target of 75% reduction in methane emissions from the oil and gas sector this decade, through new performance standards and new risk-based approach for leak detection and repair. Mon message à travers tous ces engagements est clair. Le Canada peut et veut en faire plus, et le monde apprécie l'engagement constructif du Canada. Il n'a, hélas, pas toujours été ainsi. Il fut un temps, au cours de la décennie précédente, où on qualifiait le Canada de « colossal fossil », le fossile de l'année, lors de 4 réunions internationales sur les changements climatiques. Pourquoi suis-je en train de déterrer cette vieille histoire? Parce que les Canadiens connaissent une année extrêmement difficile. La hausse du coût de la vie, les problèmes d'accessibilité, les phénomènes météorologiques extrêmes, notamment des inondations et des incendies de forêt qui ont même enfumé nos grandes villes. Alors, nous n'en ferons jamais trop pour soutenir l'action climatique à l'échelle mondiale. During one UN event, we had 2 hard-working Canadian firefighters here to share their stories. Chief Jason Brolin from West Kelowna, British Columbia,
Pour
an
les
assistant chief
calculations
in the Halifax
économiques
Regional Fire and
que
Emergency
les
Services.
grands constructeurs
that go
vont
into
utiliser en
the
décidant
planning of
est-ce que je vais
large
construire
constructors.
des condos,
So
des
they will ask
condos
themselves the
de
question,
luxe,
will I go ahead
ou
and
est-ce
build
que je
luxury
vais
condos,
construire des
or will I
appartements à loyer?
instead
Nous savons
build
que le
rental
grand
housing?
besoin dans
We
l'économie
know that
aujourd'hui,
the
dans
great
le
need
marché
in the
du
economy
logement,
and in
c'est
terms
qu'il
of
y a une
the
manque
housing
des
market today is
appartements
that there's a
à
lack of
Cette
rental
mesure
housing,
va
a shortage of
vraiment
rental
créer des
housing.
situations
So this measure
des conditions
will
économiques
really create the
qui
economic
vont
conditions
vraiment ajouter à la construction
to
des
help with
appartements
the
à
construction
louer.
of more rental housing. And maybe Sean would like to add something.
Alors, j'espère que vous êtes OK si j'ai posé une réponse en anglais.
I hope it's okay if I answer in English.
A fictional principle that Christia has just described. There are real
Thanks, Sean.
projects that I'm. There are real projects I've become aware of that were being designed as condo projects that are now going to be converted to apartment rentals. Jennifer Keesmaat, the former chief planner for the city of Toronto, now runs Marquee Developments and has indicated in a public statement that in fact one of her major projects is going to be converted to an apartment as a result of this change. So the allegation that the measure will lead to luxury condo construction is misinformed, and respectfully I say that only because condominiums literally are not eligible for this measure. On the issue of which range of units that will benefit from this new program, my initial reaction was that I wanted to protect against some of the challenges that you might see if units at upper ends are subsidized. It took about 5 minutes to confirm with experts and doing a little bit of research that that's not the impact in places that have adopted similar policies before. When you're dealing with an intense supply shortage.
We've been listening to federal officials holding a news conference talking about some new affordability measures.